You recently wrote a book in March of this year, Upset is Optional, Say Goodbye to Unnecessary Suffering. I'd love to get the conversation started talking a little bit about the concept of upset is optional.
You know, there's a lot of suffering in the world, and there will always be suffering, unfortunately. But the difference between upset and suffering is pretty profound. So you actually can control your emotions, as we all know. And there are tips and tools that I have been taught by my mentor to help us get through times when we do find ourselves legitimately upset and want to step away from it. You can actually stop that and reframe and come down and be your normal self.
Excellent. And can you talk a little bit about how that concept applies to our current political stress right now?
You know, I think election seasons are complicated, and we've been at this for probably now more than 8 years. I can remember during a particular presidential election when no one was able to actually sit at a Thanksgiving table. So we've all kind of built shields and trying to figure out how to get through this next one because it's equally volatile. And I do believe that, you know, there are ways that we can like communicate with one another so that you're not taking this stress in and it goes into your body and it literally can make you physically ill. Think about an ulcer, think about asthma attacks. That our language has that much impact on how our body responds physically and with each other.
Hmm. And can you talk about some of the strategies that you've outlined in your book and how our audience can practically use these tips?
So the first thing I recommend is create a word wall. We're all using probably similar language when it comes to the candidates. I could suggest that somebody might say stupid a lot if they're watching the news. Not a great word. So pick those words and create them in your head. And you know that don't you have friends? I have friends who use the word sugar instead of anything else. So my recommendation is you find the words that you are triggered to, moron, idiot, you know, just painful words, and swap those out. And they can be nonsensical words. They can be sugar. They can be, that's interesting. And there's a lot of, in my home, there's a lot of, that's interesting. That's interesting. And you'll find that you'll feel better as you learn to adapt and not use the language that you just go to so easily.
Excellent. So I'm hearing to substitute using some negative words for more positive ones to help reframe negative emotions that you might feel like frustration and fear. How does setting daily intentions help to set our mood and help to alleviate some of this anxiety during this election season?
A great practice for everyday living. So every day before I put my feet on the ground, and everyone has their morning routines, could be while you were brushing your teeth, I design my mood. I choose a way that I want to be when I'm walking out in the world. And for me, most of the time it's peaceful. And then, so then when you like put that intention in your body and you get up and you start your day and you turn the news on and you start to, you know, go with that lead story, you go, I'm going to be peaceful today. Step back, take a breath, recenter. And it's something that you have to do throughout the day. And it's something that you need to practice all the time. These are not things that just work once and you are readily, you have access to them at the drop of a hat. So sometimes I just wear a scrunchie and flip myself during the day and say, peaceful.
It's a very, very good advice. And can you talk about some of the other ways that you've been able to put this in practice for yourself?
Yeah, so reframing is a really good way of living your life. And I'll give you the perfect example. I was in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania on Sunday, headed to the Willie Nelson concert. And I ran across every traffic was stopped on all the highways. It was the motorcade for the president. And I went, reframe. It's not a problem. It's a temporary delay.
Mm. And one phrase that you talk about in the book is serving the 7 generations. Can you explain the idea behind that and its relevance to managing stress?
It really is rooted in Native American culture, and it means that I live in one generation. I have 3 generations that came before me that served me, and I'm going to honor them. And I have 3 generations that I may never know that are coming after me. So when you choose your work and you move through your day, recognize that everything you do impacts all of that that makes you in those 7 generations.
And it's hard right now, it's hard to get away from any type of talk in terms of, the presidential candidates and what's going on and debates and whatnot. So for people who might be a little overwhelmed by the current political climate, how can they feel reassured that their vote matters right now?
I know there's a lot of fear and anxiety, and I think everybody needs to remember that the action of voting is a gift and a privilege, and it's really important. And it's really important for our children's future, but it's also up and down the ballot. Don't let one candidate race take away your right to vote when so many people fought for us to have it. And that is power. And that do not ever cede your power with that vote, even if it's for the local PTA or the city council.
And earlier you talked a little bit about some of the discomfort that we might be feeling with family or friends, especially when it comes to Thanksgiving dinners or just social interactions. So how can we get along with our family and our friends and our colleagues who might not agree with our political views during this time?
And I know that a lot of people have just quit mentioning the candidates' names. I know I see this in interviews all the time. It's just an avoidance theory, and it really has impacted the polls, I think, which is very interesting. So I've renamed the candidates, and I call them Martha Washington and Mary Todd. And when you start having a conversation about an election and there's no one to tie that to, you can actually talk about some issues. It's just something that I have started recently. So it goes back to that reframing and also just deeply listening and not necessarily engaging. Don't let your body react. Just sit there and be the best self that you can be without sacrificing your health.